Welcome to the CDU Careers and Employment Guide to Nursing Graduate Programs. Please visit our Career Hub website by following the links from cdu.edu.au/careers. Our site includes job ads for full-time, part-time and casual work, resume building tools, employment news info sheets, job alert emails, and online appointment booking with our careers staff. This presentation will cover what you need to know when applying for a graduate nursing position. We'll look at the documents required for an application as well as how to prepare you for an interview. Information about the graduate nursing program in the NT can be found at nursing.nt.gov.au. Other states and territories have their own web pages with the appropriate information which can be found in the links on this slide. For your graduate nursing program application, you will need your GNP application or cover letter for employment, your response to the selection criteria, your CV with 2 clinical referees, any relevant immunisation forms and supporting documentation, your birth certificate, Australian citizenship and passport if required, your latest academic transcript. Please note that if you require an additional copy of your latest transcript, it will incur a fee of $15. Your most recent clinical placement reports, a police criminal history check, a working with children check, known in the NT as the OCA card. Please note that items on this list may vary from state to state. There are many acceptable variations of resume layout. Resumes are vital to highlighting your current and previous job skills, but remember to be truthful and accurate when writing up your resume. Be sure to provide all information requested by your employer or GNP provider. Spelling mistakes and grammatical errors look very unprofessional on any kind of application. Do not take your spell checker for granted. It can still let grammatical errors and incorrect word usage slip through. Avoid coloured paper or folders. The employer or GNP provider is more likely to discard any superficially flashy applications rather than be intrigued by them. Your application should fit on one printed page, and you should aim to lay out the text over 4 paragraphs. We'll look at this in detail on the next slide. Remember to sign the letter. This makes it look more professional. Here's an example of a cover letter. It is fairly generic and should only be used as a guideline for your own letter. In the first paragraph, you'll want to address why you are writing and inform the employer of what documents you have included with this letter. The second paragraph is a chance to introduce yourself and talk a little about why you wish to apply for the graduate program. Please note that some things between paragraph 1 and 2 are interchangeable, so you may wish to introduce yourself first, for example. Paragraph 3 is an opportunity for you to talk up your skills and strengths, and how your employment and education history are relevant to you becoming a nurse. Your final paragraph winds things up. It's an opportunity to thank the person you are writing to. This brings up another important point. If you can, find out who is on your GNP selection board so that you can address them by name in the letter. Otherwise, to whom it may concern is sufficient at the top of the letter. As previously mentioned, there are many different variations for resume layout. The following checklist is only a guide on one way of constructing a resume. Start with your personal details, which should be restricted to name, address, phone number, preferably a mobile, and email address. Any other information, including date of birth, marital status, religion or ethnicity, are things the employer cannot discriminate against and should not be included on your resume. If applicable, you may also need to include your visa status. This can go below your personal details. Next, your education history should be listed in descending order, so your current or most recent studies are listed first. It's important to list tertiary education you have completed or are studying, but you don't need to go too far back. Generally, your completion of high school should be the oldest item on the list. If your work history is consistent, then generally you do not need to go back more than 5 years when listing previous jobs. If you have gaps in your work history from raising a family, etc., you may need to go back further to fill up this section. Try to keep it to no more than 5 or 6 items on this list. Remember that when applying for your GNP, all work history is relevant. Even if you have only worked in hospitality or at a checkout, this counts as relevant customer service experience, and you must take advantage of this when addressing your selection criteria. Skills including software knowledge such as Windows, Mac OS, and Microsoft Office applications may be included in this section. Depending on the position you're applying for, typing speed may also be relevant. Membership to professional associations in the health service industry may be included also. If you feel it is relevant, you may include a short paragraph or list of community activities, sports, or leisure activities. This may help you boost your image and give a positive impression to employers. Finally, you must include at least 2 clinical referees on your GNP. This will be discussed in greater detail later in the presentation. It's very important to address the selection criteria for either GNP or other job applications. However, it should be noted that some states and territories, such as the NT in 2012, do not require a selection criteria. This may vary year by year, so it's important to stay informed when it comes time to submit your application. One of the most important elements of the selection criteria is demonstrated ability through specific examples. A simple way to provide examples of demonstrated ability is via the STAR STAR method. This stands for situation, give a particular situation you experienced in the workplace; task, what was the task you were required to complete during the situation; action, how did you go about completing this task; and results, what were the results of your actions, were they positive or negative? The STAR STAR method will be looked at in further detail on the next slide. Finally, make sure to write out each selection criteria, along with your completed answers, just to avoid any confusion with which criteria you're addressing, and so the employer can follow it more easily. Here is a basic STAR STAR method example. The title should not be included in your final response, as you want it to read as a series of cohesive sentences rather than a generic checklist. The example begins with the situation: university working within teams. The task then follows to complete assignments. This is followed by an example that combines the two elements: undertaking a survey for an occupational safety unit. Next, the actions are addressed. Team discussions to decide who was responsible for particular aspects of the survey, milestones and timeframes in order to ensure that the unit objectives are met, and also agreeing to processes that the team would follow should a member of the team not complete the assigned task. Finally, this example describes the result: a very positive team environment where members shared and discussed information openly, leading to all students involved getting good grades for the unit. When choosing referees, it's important to consider the following. It is very important to request permission from referees before putting them on your resume. There is nothing worse than having an employer call a referee, only to have them not remember you right away or be unprepared in their response to any questions about your work history. In addition to contacting your referee, it's advisable also to provide them with a copy of your resume and also your completed selection criteria. This way, your referee will have a better idea of what to talk about to your potential employer. If you've been successful in your GNP or job placement, let the referee know this. Otherwise, they might continue giving your references for employers long after you've gotten the job. Be mindful of who you choose as your referees. And remember, if this is for your GNP, you must have 2 clinical referees on your resume. There are 3 important points to remember when going for your interview: your appearance, your attitude, and how you go about answering questions. Avoid wearing clothes that are too casual for your interview, and obviously avoid any clothing that would be deemed inappropriate for the workplace. Excessive jewelry can be distracting and should be kept to a minimum. You should also avoid wearing excessive amounts of perfume or cologne. You should, however, attend to a reasonable level of personal hygiene and try if you can to follow the dress code of the organisation. Obviously, this doesn't apply to a hospital setting, but think more along the lines of how you would dress for a day at the office. Here are some examples of what not to wear to an interview. And here are some examples of what is appropriate to wear to a job interview. While you're waiting to go in for your interview, it's a good idea to have a completed copy of your selection criteria with you. You may wish to highlight important points to help you remember keywords and phrases. Once you're in the interview, it's important to listen carefully to the questions, which can be challenging if the pressure of the interview is making you particularly nervous. Don't be afraid to ask the interviewer to repeat the question if you did not understand or hear it fully the first time. In your answers, try to engage each panel member. Don't just make eye contact with the person asking you the question. If you think you may get nervous during the interview, it can be helpful to rehearse what you will say. Your selection criteria can give you some good clues on what the interviewers will be asking you. Rehearsal is also a lot about practicing how you should speak in the interview, what kind of language you think will be appropriate, as well as how you present yourself, your posture, and body language. Remember that appearing organised, thinking, and speaking clearly are all important methods to making a strong impression on your job interview. It's important to be aware of your presentation and speaking capabilities in such a scenario and preparing yourself adequately so that you don't end up sabotaging yourself with nervousness. You need to be extremely mindful of conveying a positive attitude during your interview, but also in the way you word your application letter and parts of your resume. At all costs, avoid complacency and arrogance towards the interview panel. It may not be in your nature to act this way, but sometimes nerves can get the better of you. So again, it is important to rehearse how you will act during the interview to help ensure a positive outcome. In conclusion, it is important to know your full range of skills and attributes. It can be helpful to write down a comprehensive list of skills you have acquired from each job you have worked and from your time studying. This list can then be suitably transferred over to your application letter, resume, and selection criteria. This activity can also help as a confidence-building exercise for your interview. Make sure to provide all information that the employer has asked for and to deliver it in the preferred format. Keep your resume in mind when learning new skills. Make sure you keep it up to date every time you commence or finish any new jobs or educational commitments. And last of all, be enthusiastic and positive during your interview. Please visit cdu.edu.au/careers and log into our Career Hub website for more employment and GNP information. If you need to speak to someone from our team, please email Liz Hendry in Casuarina or myself, Chris, in Alice Springs. This concludes the CDU Graduate Nursing Program presentation. Best of luck in your application and graduate program placement.